welcome everyone, first of all, and thank you for taking the time to join us on today's webinar on 5 steps to delivering value with enterprise architecture. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Nick Stevenson-Steels. I'm a senior consultant here at Avolution, and I've actually been with the company just over 4 years now. Beforehand, I was actually working with Abacus as a former client, and I worked with a consultancy firm working on various IT and enterprise architecture projects, focusing on basically delivering data-driven value. What I'm going to do is just give you through a brief agenda of today's session, and we're going to start by really going back to basics as to what enterprise architecture is and its benefits. We're then going to get stuck into the 5 steps of delivering enterprise architecture, and this is from our perspective here at Avolution. But looking at the value of which the enterprise architecture value, which will touch on how we can actually communicate this kind of value with our wider team and our stakeholders. And as I mentioned at the end, we will be saving some time for any questions that you might have. Before I get stuck into any of today's content, I will just give you all a brief background into the history of Avolution and Abacus. Again, for those of you that are on the call that are with us already, I'm just going to jog your memories a little bit. And for those of you that are new to Abacus and Avolution, hopefully this gives you a bit of an insight into who we are and what we do. So Avolution was founded 21 years ago, and we actually pride ourselves on creating an enterprise architecture platform for enterprise architects by enterprise architects. We had and still stand by the vision of recreating enterprise architecture, which focuses on both flexibility and the ability to deliver business insights both quickly and efficiently. Of course, we have come a long way since we first started. We now have 7 offices worldwide, which ultimately means we've got the capability to support customers across any region and also in any industry. Hopefully, this is actually highlighted by the various analyst reports such as Gartner Magic Quadrant, where we are proud to be recognized as the leader for 6 years now, as well as in their companion report, the Enterprise Architecture Tool Critical Capabilities Analysis. So as a tool itself, Abacus does support a very broad range of frameworks and notations. We offer hundreds of frameworks and notations out of the box, including ones that no doubt you'll be familiar with, such as TOGAF, Archimate, BPMN, and BIAN. The list goes on and on and on. So that's a little bit about Abacus and us as a whole, but I'm going to get straight into the content of today's session. So what is EA, enterprise architecture, or why on earth do we need it? So technology, markets, and regulations are constantly changing and evolving. New technology introduces new business models, adaptive markets, increased competition expectations, and new regulations always come in quick and fast. And this is an ongoing change, and it causes business ecosystems to become increasingly complex. Enterprise architecture can help manage this complexity and allow organizations such as the ones that you're at to remain agile and stay ahead of the curve. Let's take a step back. All businesses within all industries are formed of multiple parts, including processes, products, data, people, and technology. These parts need to work together like cogs in a machine in order to create value. But how do we understand how these parts fit together? That is the purpose of enterprise architecture. Enterprise architecture can help identify these primary components and relationships between them, and often this is spoke of as a blueprint of a company, which helps to unify and coordinate departmental processes across your business, and it actually provides access to understand your organization's capabilities and highlights how you can improve the ways your business delivers value. That's both internally and externally. And tying this all together, we have these 4 domains of enterprise architecture. And within every organization, there will be different stakeholders from all of these different departments wanting to understand different levels of details on how the business is operating. I'm guessing that sounds quite familiar to some of you. To be able to gather this information quickly and efficiently, enterprise architecture is often broken down into these four domains: business architecture, application architecture, data architecture, and technology architecture. For businesses to succeed and deliver value, they need to be aligned and have a comprehensive view of all of these domains. Once viewed as solely a concern for tech companies or IT departments, and even perceived as a side discipline, would you believe, for some, enterprise architecture is now a priority for organizations in almost every industry. And according to Gartner, 60% of businesses will depend on enterprise architecture's role to inform their approach to digital innovation in 2023. What's more, Glassdoor has actually named enterprise architect as the number one job of 2022. This revival has brought recognition that enterprise architecture does deliver business value at the broadest level, not just within IT. So how exactly are we going to deliver this value? We understand the importance of EA. We know the fundamentals of how enterprise architecture works as a discipline, but how can we utilize enterprise architecture to really deliver value to the organization, and more so communicate this value with stakeholders? We're going to dive into those 5 key steps of doing just that. We're going to go into more detail on each of these points as we go through, but just as a high level, I'll just take you through the steps that I'm going to touch on today. Firstly, we're looking at setting up an enterprise architecture repository, creating a single source of truth and collating all of your data in one place, which will help create the most accurate form of data, but also ease of maintenance. Step 2, we're focusing on data and efforts towards business outcome driven architecture, using the best of both data driven and diagram driven architectures. The third step, we'll look at ways of keeping this data current and ways to include the wider team from other departments to help ensure that this data remains up to date and valid. Fourth step, we'll look at how to communicate this gathered and analyzed data in a business-friendly manner in the form of dashboards, in a familiar environment for your stakeholders, which allows them to make confident and informed decisions. And finally, we'll touch on our enterprise architecture tool checklist. So let's jump into step 1, setting up the enterprise architecture repository. Architects need to store, communicate, and reuse architectural information. In a digital world, this content is one of the key assets of your enterprise. Managing an architecture repository well and analyzing it to provide timely information and guidance is a hallmark of successful architecture teams. Your repository will also need to be flexible and adaptable to be able to accommodate changes in the enterprise itself. A well-built repository can provide such a strong foundation for modeling and road mapping. In fact, integrating and connecting data well can provide many benefits across your organization, which include actually collaborating and working as a team to provide a trusted set of data. Reducing costs, always going to be there. We're always wanting to reduce that dollar figure. Saving time. We spend so much hours keying in data, manually having to check things to see if it's right or not. We can reduce that massively. And ultimately, we'll want to increase the agility of our organizations by quickly analyzing our business opportunities, again, based from that data. But where do we start when we're wanting to set up an enterprise architecture repository? And the best part is actually having some form of scoping and setup. Sounds rather mundane, but it's absolutely necessary. And when creating a centralized enterprise architecture repository, it is important to ensure that your meta model provides the informational structure that you need to track progress towards what your business goals are. Your chosen meta model will be the foundation for documenting relationships between components in your architecture. It's also going to provide an understanding of how your organization's systems and assets are logically structured and connected. And we've got a little checklist here of areas to consider when choosing your defined meta model. So the first one, creating a base meta model that can be expanded as your content evolves. You don't always need to go full on kitchen sink and all in there. Start small and look at how you can build that out as you grow. Ensure that your meta model actually meets what you're needing from your use cases. Don't just use something because you know it is a good standard. Does it meet what you want to do in your organization? Make the most of the features within those industry specific models. However, there's plenty to choose from. So there will be one that will align with what you're trying to do. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. And lastly, create only what's required. And the reason we say that here is it's so easy just to utilize apps, or attempt to utilize, I should say, anything and everything from any of the frameworks. Some of it will be relevant to your business right now. Some of it might be relevant in however many months' time. But whilst you're actively using it, just use what's required. It'll make life much, much easier for you. It's also important to ensure that your chosen meta model, as I've mentioned already, can evolve and grow. And it's one reason within Abacus, we have developed our own Avolution framework, the Avolution meta model, which some of you may be familiar with. And that is actually assembled from what we consider the best features of leading frameworks on the market, including, just to name a few, TOGAF, ITIL, and BPMN. There's a few others involved in there as well. And it consists of multiple pre-made templates, multiple pre-made algorithms, I might add, and supporting collateral to help users make decisions quickly and effectively. Within the framework, you can also utilize Abacus predefined scripts and pre-built financial calculations actually to help automate diagrams and the data displayed on them, which hopefully will help you predict future costs of things such as your total cost of ownership. You're able to adjust, restructure, and update your repository in flight as your business evolves. Hopefully you can see that here through the different levels, as I mentioned in the previous slide, starting simple, building it out as you go along. If you would like any more information on how to choose an enterprise architecture framework, we have an excellent article actually, which I'll make sure is posted as a link in this chat at some point, might even be after this or emailed out, which hopefully will help you on that journey. But what I've covered here, as I mentioned, is our Avolution framework. And of course, there are many other meta models, but this hopefully is a good indication on how you can work with hybrid meta models using best aspects from different frameworks based on what your needs actually are in your organization. Okay, so we've started our setup. Now we actually need to begin adding some content and adding some data into that repository. And connecting data sources provides users with a trusted one-stop shop for data and documentation. This should make updates easier. It should make analysis more reliable and accessible. Adapters and integrations also allow users to quickly and easily round trip and exchange data from your popular sources. Ensuring data remains up to date and synchronized without users having to manually update or re-enter on multiple platforms is absolutely key. It harks back to what I spoke about before, saving that time, not just for you, but for all of your colleagues as well. Another way to ensure smooth data integrations is by having a REST API. This is going to allow data from a huge range of common sources to be exchanged with your repository. And the first stage of this is to find the endpoints that will give you the data that you're after. Automations and APIs also allow any user to streamline workflows by leveraging and exchanging that data, again, helping save time. Once API integrations and automations are in place, you're going to be able to work with any information that is stored in your enterprise architecture repository, all whilst minimizing the manual data refresh processes. They're allowing that API and any integrations to do that work for you. For enhanced data consistency, you'll be able to query and filter data with simple to use standards, which should give you quick access to a wealth of information as well. As a project, creating an effective repository, a single source of truth, is also an excellent opportunity for some application rationalization. And it's something that we see often here at Avolution. Identifying applications that you are and also are not using. On average, enterprises use somewhere between 850 to 1,500 applications. That is an awful lot of data. However, by effectively rationalizing applications, you can make significant savings, going back to that reducing the dollar value. A recent survey has actually found that the average global company can save between 20 and 30% of its IT budget by retiring redundant applications. That's not taking into account any forms of process, any form of capability or human investment, purely from applications being retired that we no longer use. That's a huge saving. All right, then, moving on to step 2. We have the data collected in one spot, safely and securely within our enterprise architecture repository, that one-stop shop. But how can we use this data, and what should we be measuring in order for successful outcomes? Is there any technical and financial analytics that the CIOs are needing and the decision makers are expecting from enterprise architects in 2023? What are they actually looking for in the work that we're doing in the EA practice? Traditionally, enterprise architecture was heavily modeling and diagram focused, diagram driven effectively. Nevertheless, more recently, the push for data driven seems to have taken precedence. At Avolution, we are a strong believer that both diagram and data driven architecture still very much have their place in delivering valuable insights. And combined, they can create quite the force, which results in what we consider as that business outcome driven architecture. Business outcome driven architectures help to provide stakeholders and all the information, data, and results that they need in an environment that they're familiar with and can easily access at any time, helping them to create confident and informed decisions. We live in a data economy where data powers most successful digital enterprises. However, these insights, albeit important, can get overlooked if not communicated in a business-friendly manner. And I'm going to touch on communicating data in more detail later, but to help emphasize the point of poorly communicated data, I've just got a couple of examples on this slide. And these, of course, are not really business-friendly. It's important to report meaningful insights, backed by real data and delivered in a way that is easy to understand on a platform that they are actually comfortable with. It's also important to understand the specific needs of your stakeholders and your business to really help reach strategic goals and generate real value. Aiming to answer key and complex questions and allow businesses to make better decisions. Leading with data can provide greater detail and certainty around forecasts. Architects and business users need to design calculations which roll up data numerically across the architecture, generating required KPIs on demand. As well as diagrams and roadmaps, EAs often need to be ready to provide reporting dashboards, which include what we see on the screen here. Such things as technology cost analysis, how much are we actually spending, life cycles and trends of certain metrics. So life cycles being more contract dates, when something is coming to an end of life, when are we going to invest in something? Looking at different KPIs on your diagrams, what are those diagrams actually showing? Is it data that's relevant? Is it informing me or the end user of anything? And finally, the analysis by the architects from those APIs. As for a recent survey by Gartner, 58% of CIOs are increasing investment in BI and data and analytic initiatives, which leaves a huge opportunity for enterprise architecture leaders to provide an area where hundreds of decisions and data initiatives can be made. Essentially, this highlights the enterprise architect's position to leverage their unique enterprise view, which ensures that decision makers have all of the data that they need to drive business outcomes. Leadership can identify and capture opportunities for high demand, high potential data and analytical capabilities. For example, EAs are uniquely positioned to look for those data opportunities in the organization, to understand the data and where it flows to and from, and look at how we can actually optimize that, which helps ensure all of your strategies are aligned and it actually works alongside the data and needs for not just now, but for the future as well. These advantages can translate into practical applications that are critical to any organization's data and analytical aspirations and can elevate its business value. One way enterprise architects can gather and analyze this data is through the form of automations and algorithms. And you can utilize algorithms to run any form of analysis. So check what if scenarios, compare your future and target states. And you can actually choose pre-built or create bespoke algorithms to help calculate costs, risk forecasts, technical KPIs, different trends, metrics that we mentioned before, business fit, technical fit, criticality, maturity, the list goes on and on and on. Ultimately, what this is going to do is help save time and provide an extra element of accuracy as you ultimately let the algorithms do the work for you. And although creating an algorithm might sound a bit daunting, within Abacus, we actually have our visual algorithm composer, where users can design your own bespoke calculations simply using drag and drop functionality, avoiding any coding, which if you're anything like me, it's absolutely beautiful. I'm not a coder at all, so drag and drop in, just say, I want to get this bit of data. If this particular statement, form a calculation, set this value here. Nice and straightforward. Okay, on to step 3 now. We have our data in the repository. We've understood what core questions we need to answer to deliver some value, but our results are only as accurate as the data is, which we know as soon as data is entered somewhere, it is instantly out of date. And we all know that data maintenance isn't really a fun part of the role. It can be pretty timely, and often it is a manual process. And hopefully you've heard already, and I'll repeat it again, you'll be pleased to hear that it's not always the case. Allowing and encouraging your users and teams to across the enterprise to actually engage, maintain their own data can actually help save masses of time. Like any task, the easier it is for the user, the more likely it is that task will actually get done. And this rule certainly applies for effective self-service data management. Your application management data needs to be secure, accessible, and easy to manage. And we'd encourage you to tailor and personalize data registers in browser-based catalogs or familiar workplace environments, such as Microsoft Teams. So we're talking about using different catalogs here in those familiar environments. And it's going to give the users the ability to quickly check in on your organization's data, looking at a view that is friendly to them and in a collaborative environment, but showing them the data that they need to update. In Abacus, the data owners with the relevant permissions are able to self-manage the asset lists and initiate chats directly from their dashboards. They can adjust the catalogs as they need to, whatever the designs need to change. So I'm talking about like renaming columns here to show something that's more suitable, for them and their team, reordering columns, sorting, filtering. You get the idea, making it something that is bespoke to them and what is going to be useful for them, all while working from that single source of truth. As mentioned, the data updates and access needn't just stay within your core architecture team or your IT department. Browser-based catalogs really do help bridge the gap between the IT teams and the wider business, as it allows users from all departments, including likes of HR, marketing, sales, again, the list can go on, and it allows them to easily access and edit their data in real time, which in practice helps improve data integrity because you're getting that information from source. Same with the reliability and the productivity within the comfort of their browser. You're letting them use an enterprise architecture tool without actually realizing they're using an enterprise architecture tool. It's important to note that within Abacus, we offer the security of permissions. I mentioned that a couple of times. And what that will actually do is help provide peace of mind that your architectures and the different areas aren't going to be disrupted by people that ultimately just shouldn't be in there. As well as collaborative editing for incomplete data sets, users are able to upload spreadsheets of applications with their life cycles or financial data. And ultimately, what you're allowed to do is ask Abacus. This is a form of machine learning where we're using predictive analytics and natural language processing to provide predictions of values which belong in any empty cells. And this could be really useful to help just identify those blanks rather than having to reach out to teams who might not actually know the answers. Let Abacus actually give you a suggestion based on the information that is in Abacus already. Okay, moving on to step 4. Touched on a little earlier. In order to provide true value to your organization, we need to be able to communicate all of our data and analysis effectively to our stakeholders and the CIOs in order for them to make informed and confident decisions. Using right visualizations and presentations is going to highlight the right data. It's always a good place to start. How do we showcase what the right data is that they need to see in an area where we've got a sea of information and data that we're not too sure of? So to emphasize that point, let's have a look at this data and in this grid. If I ask you to count how many 9s are there, are you going to be able to tell me? If I give you 20 minutes, maybe, but it's hard to tell just from this instance in looking at this block. It's going to be really hard to do, and this is a relatively simple data set. And it's there. If I just highlight them in red, again, your eyes might be trying to adjust to see that because even I'm struggling with that one, but it's not a great visualization. So it's easy to ignore, but using the right visualizations, we can really highlight and make it so much easier and obvious to which pieces of data we want to point people in the direction of. Help them find what's important to them. So what's the best way of showing our data? What actually works? Luckily, we've had some scientific studies that have been undertaken in the past that have shown which visual cues work and, of course, which ones don't. William Cleveland and Robert McGill's paper on graphical perception tells us that when us here as designers trying to design this information presentation, when we visualize data, we need to be aware of such things as the shapes, the coloring, and the positioning of our content. It all sounds very basic, but all is really important. And the rankings here give you an idea of what works best. I'm just going to go through some examples on our dashboards that will actually hopefully show this in a bit more detail. This often gets overlooked, but look and highlight different headers. Make it obvious for your teams to know that they're in the right area, that they know that this is the information that they want to work in. Secondly, on this one, notice how it is embedded in that familiar environment. You don't need to give them a separate login for anywhere else. Embed what they need to do in the likes of Microsoft Teams or or on your intranet, wherever it needs to be. Let them use and log into what they know and work with day in, day out. Moving on to another one, we're looking at clear KPIs, really emphasizing what we've got displayed on here with different percentages, seconds and timings, dollar signs. What's going to draw their eye here? Just to get those data, those KPIs across quickly and easily. Look at using the dynamic visualizations. We've got a wealth of those in Abacus Enterprise. Specifically here, take a look at the Gantt chart that we're drilling down, that as we go into it deeper, it's filtering not just our Gantt chart, but the diagram on the left, and it actually filters down to show the relevant data in the catalog below. And lastly, again, I do find this quite a simple one, but it's one that I find specifically with some clients of ours that it's easy to ignore the simple things such as working with colors. Like, look at how we've just got yes and no in a red and a green. It's really basic, but it draws the eye. I can see with the red nose that something hasn't been done. This red number 9 of outstanding reviews, I'm like, well, something needs to happen. I've got to actually do something here. And lastly, we want to look at making that end user journey quite easy. So you can create as many dashboards as you need, but what you can see here is we're actually utilizing navigation techniques to drill through the different dashboards, click on links, taking you through different sections of enterprise to be able to basically look at one piece of data first, but then not having to remember a pathway to go back. You can click on the buttons to take you back wherever, and indeed open up some external resources. Okay, so this actually brings us on to our final step for delivering enterprise architecture success, and that being some useful questions for you to ask if and when you're choosing an enterprise architecture tool to support your current practice. And we're not saying here that an enterprise architecture tool is going to solve all of your problems. It won't. But what it can do, however, is support your practice, and it can help provide a good foundation for bringing all of your repository together from across the organization. So for anyone on the call today who's looking to explore this avenue, we have actually pulled together some useful areas to look at when you actually search for an enterprise architecture tool. Firstly, modeling. Of course, a crucial area within enterprise architecture. It's always worth ensuring that the tools that you evaluate have all the frameworks that you need, not just for now, but also in the future. Basically, yes, is it future-proof? What kind of diagramming environment is best for your data? What viewpoints do you need? And are you able to customize these? Are you needing different architecture states, your current state, future state? What kind of road mapping styles are there? List goes on and on and on that one. So make sure that all of those needs are met within the tooling environment. Second one, which I think is really, really important here, is the configuration. How adaptable is it? Architects need to be able to define, customize, and manage architectures and their meta models to fit their business. It's not a one-size-fits-all operation. And the repository and connected artifacts need to be modified as the business moves forward. We've covered that. It needs to be adaptable. And what I would say is try to look for tools that you can avoid being dependent on costly customizations. Are you able to do it yourself? Or are you needing the supplier to do it for you? Thirdly, looking at integrations. Tying in with our step one of building the enterprise architecture repository, enterprise architecture tools, they need to allow organizations to collate their information into a single source of truth, to be able to share the data with management, their operational teams, whoever it might be, technical departments. And like, is there any round tripping and automation options, or is it all manual keying in? Does the tool that you're looking at have REST API to fully integrate with other third-party software, give you further flexibility? Next one is collaboration, always a biggie. Helping to keep your data current without manual updates. It's huge. So when exploring any tools, always check this point and see what collaborative features and functionalities are available. How is data managed and administered? Are you able to set and manage permissions easily and actually hide information you want to hide, show what you want to show? What are you able to do there? But ultimately, are you able to collaborate with your stakeholders? Show whoever you need to show the information they need, and whether that's editable or purely consumption method. What limitations do you have there? Analysis and reports, or another huge one. Again, they're all huge, that's why they're on this list. So you have all of your data in the repository. Your teams have spent time getting everything connected. But as we know, one of the most valuable attributes enterprise architecture can offer the organization is reporting this data and analysis in easy and digestible formats. And that's often the case in the dashboards. Doesn't the tooling for start have any dashboards or reports to help you run the analysis? Any what ifs, comparing your different states of architecture? Maybe you are needing those automations and algorithms to run different calculations to help you forecast cost, forecast risks, whatever those KPIs might be. And do they have the visualizations in place to help show those to whoever that may be, whoever may need to see that? And lastly, on our checklist, support and deployment. Of course, every organization is different. Every user has different access requirements, but whether you need your tool to be deployed on-premise via secured hosted cloud, or maybe even both, ensure that whatever deployment you're looking for, ensure that supplier can actually provide what you need. Don't get swayed by saying, well, if they only have that, let's go that. Make sure you go for what you actually want in the organization. Stay firm to what you actually need. One last point that I will make before I do move on is the high importance as part of your procurement of a tool. Like, will you be looking to actually have demonstrations? What trials or proof of concepts? What about the RFP? All of these things are worth ironing out up front before you start procuring a tool. There's lots of things that you might need to go through. So consider what you might need to do. So just to mention those again, demonstrations, have you seen what the tool can do? Trials, can you have free access to parts of it so you can actually just try before you buy, as the name suggests. And proof of concept, you need to go in a little bit deeper. If you would like any more information and detail on feature comparisons for enterprise architecture tools, we've actually got a link at the bottom of this slide, which should break down each of these points to show how Abacus can actually support you in each of these needs. And that actually just leads me on to my summary of this presentation. So ultimately, delivering enterprise architecture well brings value. It's going to allow for a fuller picture of where you currently are, along with a longer look into the future. Like, you're going to be able to have that longer range view of where you're actually going. And it's going to allow your business to maintain focus on whatever those strategies whatever your strategies may be. Generating actionable insights and recommendations that are trusted are going to help bridge the gap between your IT and non-techie teams throughout the business. And that's what we're doing here. We're trying to get that information in that might previously have been siloed in a particular area, usually within the IT team, but we're trying to knock those walls down, get out of that ivory tower, expose that to the wider organization, letting them in. And that is all from me. Thank you so much for taking the time